Tonight, even as 5 million more Americans apply for unemployment, the White House pushes its plan for reopening America.
And we think some of the states can actually open up before the deadline of May 1st.
We look at the new guidelines designed to bring the country back to life. Plus,
is it back to business as usual? No.
The coronavirus creating a new normal for the military. How defense forces are training to be ready for anything during the pandemic. And
this crisis has messed with marriages, it's messed with families, it's messed with people's literally hope to still live.
As people look for comfort in these uncertain times, churches are stepping in and reaching out. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. $22 million Americans out of work in the last month alone. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Starting off with that somber news tonight. Record jobless numbers hitting the American economy, even as global cases of the coronavirus top 2 million. Jenna Browder has the latest while President Trump works to reopen the country.
President Trump is announcing new federal guidelines while allowing governors to decide about reopening their states. This as more than 5 million Americans applied for unemployment in just the past week.
Not all states are the same. They're very different.
The president is deferring to governors as states coordinate by region on when and how to reopen.
We'll be opening up states, some states much sooner than others. And we think some of the states can actually open up before the deadline of May 1st.
As the country's death toll hits some 30,000, governors worry about their state's ability to access medical care, test and contact trace cases.
I kind of refer to it as kind of a rolling re-entry, so that it's not going to be like a light switch that you turn on and off.
Testing like this rapid result finger prick test approved by the FDA Wednesday could be key to reopening the economy.
I came here yesterday, I couldn't do it, so I have to come back today.
Facilities like this one, set up at Miami's Hard Rock Stadium, are testing hundreds of patients each day. Now more than 3 million Americans, or about 1% of the U.S. population, have been tested for COVID-19.
It's time for our state to be opened up.
In Michigan, protests against the governor's stay-at-home orders highlight the regional differences in fighting the outbreak. In South Dakota, which has seen some of the biggest increases in unemployment, Governor Kristi Noem is keeping her state open.
We now believe that our statewide peak will still happen in the middle of June, but that we should need about half of the hospital beds that we originally thought.
This is Idaho, Kansas, and Washington, D.C. push back their planned opening dates, with some states now requiring people to wear face masks.
It's over when we have a vaccine. It's over when people know I'm 100% safe and I don't have to worry about this.
The slow rollout comes as the new national lending program for small businesses dries up. Small Business Committee Chairman Senator Marco Rubio says lawmakers are at a standstill over how to restart the Paycheck Protection Program.
In just 12 days, this program has approved over $300 billion of aid. And now it's frozen. It stops.
And the president today blamed Democrats for blocking funding to the small business program. In a tweet, he demanded Democrats stop refilling the Paycheck Protection Program and, quote, stop playing politics. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thank you, Jenna. Well, joining me now is Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. Is now the right time to reopen America?
Well, we have to examine it step by step and listen to the scientists. I'm on the White House task force for reopening our economy. We had a call this morning with the president. It was a collaborative call with exchange of ideas. The takeaway, I think, is that we have to have a step-by-step approach, a gradual approach, and we have to listen to the medical experts.
You put out a plan with Senator Elizabeth Warren this week aiming to protect frontline workers like grocery and drugstore employees, food service workers, and farmers. What exactly are you proposing in the Essential Workers Bill of Rights, and why now?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, there are about 60 million Americans who are still going to work while many of us are working remotely. And let me just focus on three basic things that we should do. First, any person who's working now, if they're a grocery worker, if they're a nurse, should have safety in the workplace. They should be able to have masks. They should be able to get gloves. Second, they should get a premium pay. If they're driving across the country to get our groceries delivered, we ought to recognize that. And third, they should have some basic child care as they're going to work to make sure that they can take care of their families.
Congressman Khanna, where do things stand right now with the next phase of relief funding, and what's the holdup?
Well, we need to do it. We need to have the small business loans extended. A lot of small businesses have benefited from it. Here is the challenge. We want to make sure that the loans are going to the businesses that need them most. We've heard that in some cases, the businesses that have the best connection with the banks are the ones that are getting prioritized. But this needs to be resolved. It needs to be resolved in the next few days. And I certainly support getting $250 billion more to our small businesses.
The president's announcement withholding funding from the WHO comes at the same time as new reporting raises questions about the origins of the coronavirus, whether it started at a wet market or a lab. That's prompting calls to hold China accountable. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly China hasn't been transparent. It's clear. Look, they manipulated us when we did the trade agreement with them. They had a clause in there that if there is a pandemic, they no longer would have to buy from the United States. So they obviously had some suspicion that there could be a pandemic. They were not transparent. The place where I respectfully disagree with the president is I don't think we ought to get rid of the funding for the World Health Organization, which would just make it China and other countries have more influence. I think we ought to fund it, but we ought to make sure it has American values and the values of liberal democracy and is holding China accountable.
If I can just get you to comment, though, on the origins part, any thoughts on whether it started at a Wuhan wet market versus a laboratory in China?
You know, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I think we need to look at where the evidence would lead us. I certainly would blame China on transparency, but if there is evidence that it started at a laboratory, I mean, that raises a serious concern. But I think we need to really let the evidence fully emerge before we speculate.
Finally, to the November elections, you were with Team Sanders. Now that his run has ended and Joe Biden is all but certain to become the nominee, how important is it for the party to rally behind the vice president? And is that your plan?
It is my plan, and it is important. We will be unified. We'll be unified largely because a shared commitment to workers, a shared commitment to making sure that the economy is working for the middle class and the working class. But let me say, even more important than rallying around the vice president is that at this time, we all have to rally around as Americans. That's why when the White House asked me to be on the task force, I didn't hesitate. I said, I will do that. We're all Americans. This is a crisis. We need to all be pulling in the same direction to get out of it.
Well, we appreciate that bipartisan spirit. Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you so much for being with us, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
Well, the COVID-19 outbreak has created a new normal for the armed forces. Today, the Army emphasized the importance of continuing to train new recruits, even in the midst of the outbreak.
During the training, they are 6 feet apart, and they were either wearing masks or gaiters when they get closer. And you know, so we're going to see this type of training continue to happen. To our adversaries that wish us harm, do not be mistaken. The United States Army stands ready to defeat any threat, just like we'll defeat this virus.
The Pentagon says it will conduct an after-action review for lessons that can be learned about the military's response to the pandemic. Well, meanwhile, an investigation is currently underway into the high-profile firing of the USS Theodore Roosevelt's commander. It happened after Captain Brett Crozier's desperate pleas, complaining to superiors about a lack of support, went public, even as the coronavirus spread through the ship. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips has more. Eric?
Well, John, even as this investigation proceeds, there is a belief that Captain Crozier could be reinstated as the aircraft carrier's commander. And I spoke to one military expert who says he could certainly support that move.
It's been 2 weeks since the world saw this unprecedented exit of Navy Captain Brett Crozier. Brad Bowman focuses on U.S. defense strategy and policy at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's been closely following the developments aboard the Roosevelt.
You want to have a commander that has your interest at heart and takes your concerns seriously, and clearly that crew did. So what I saw in video makes me think more, not less, of Captain Crozier.
This ordeal started when the commander made a desperate plea for help as COVID-19 was attacking his crew. One sailor subsequently died from the disease. That email was leaked to the San Francisco Chronicle and said in part, "We are not at war. Sailors don't need to die."
If I were commanding that many sailors and Marines, and I had concerns that the welfare and health of my crew was at risk and that I was not getting timely or responsive answers from the chain of command, I absolutely would have complained up. Did Captain Crozier actually leak that letter, or did someone else do it? Did he know about it? These are all important questions.
Questions that were unanswered as the leaked email sparked a major controversy at the highest levels of the Pentagon, prompting Acting Navy Secretary Thomas Modly to fire Crozier.
Secretary Modly made a tough decision, a tough call. I have full faith and confidence in him and the Navy leadership, and I supported their decision.
But then Modly visited the aircraft carrier to address the crew, saying this about their fired commander.
If he didn't think, it was my opinion, that if he didn't think that information was going to get out into the public in this information age that we live in, then he was A, too naive or too stupid to be the commanding officer of a ship like this.
And I felt the comments of former Assistant Secretary Modly were inappropriate. And for him to fly out to that crew and then badmouth the former commander, that just was unprofessional and inappropriate.
Modly resigned after those comments went public. Bowman says a life lost to the coronavirus is the worst of this disaster and adds to the ship's inability to complete its mission.
The fact that the USS Roosevelt is at a dock in Guam as opposed to sailing toward the South China Sea, that is significant and not good. You have an absence, a lack of sufficient U.S. aircraft carrier combat power right now in the Indo-Pacific.
More than 600 sailors aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt have tested positive for COVID-19. And as the investigation continues into the email controversy, Captain Brett Crozier is also in quarantine because he too tested positive. John.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Coming up, the benefits of social distancing to the dangers of social isolation. Faith Nation is back with how it could affect your health after this.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch. Thanks for joining us. Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God, even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Well, welcome back. If you're one of those struggling with social distancing, some unwanted potentially bad news tonight. New research suggests the measure may need to remain in effect for a couple of years. Scientists at the Harvard School of Public Health say social distancing may need to stay in place until 2022. That's unless a vaccine is developed and released, or there's a substantial increase in critical care capabilities in America. Researchers at Harvard say it's possible the world will face resurgent cases of coronavirus into 2024. Well, prior to the pandemic, the country already faced a public health emergency, addiction, and mental health experts warn the COVID crisis could be adding fuel to the fire. Researchers at the University of Southern California report a massive boost in alcohol sales, up 55% from this time last year, attributed to social distancing and stay-at-home orders. And communities across the country are reporting spikes in drug overdoses. Experts say social isolation and anxiety are causing more people to turn to substances and warn those who misuse alcohol and drugs could be putting themselves at greater risk of contracting coronavirus because of weaker immune systems. Well, joining us now is CBN medical correspondent Lori Johnson. Lori, experts say social distancing is working, but will it be the new norm into 2022, as that Harvard study suggests?
Well, some people are saying it will be the new norm in some cases forever, because we're learning so much about how germs are spread. And even President Trump says, hey, maybe it would be a good idea that we stop handshaking altogether. He said before he became a politician, he was quite the germaphobe and really never shook people's hands. But then when he got into politics, it was sort of customary and required. But things like that, I think people from now on will be more aware and maybe doing the wiping down. But of course, wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart might not be necessary. But it's hard to imagine going on a subway in New York where people are crammed in next to each other and not be thinking about covering your face. So until 2022, we'll see about that, but it's very likely that some of these things will be permanent in many cases.
Definitely changing our social behavior. Well, some states are imposing additional requirements like having to wear face masks when you leave the home. Explain how masks help curb the spread, Lori.
Experts say that the N95 masks protect the wearer from other people and also protect other people from the wearer. But of course, most of the N95 masks are reserved for healthcare workers. So we're asked to use these surgical masks or homemade coverings for our face, which really protect other people from us. We know that the virus is spread by coughing and sneezing, but also, John, just by talking. We know that there are small droplets that when we talk sometimes go into the air and sometimes land on other people's faces. Remember, say it, don't spray it. This is what I'm talking about. And so you see a lot of people walking around that seem perfectly healthy with masks covering their face, but it's actually a good thing, because we know that between 25 and 50% of people who have COVID-19 are asymptomatic. They don't have any symptoms at all. So it's probably a good thing, even though many people feel that it seems unnecessary.
Lori, where do we stand with a vaccine?
Right now, many vaccines are in their trial phases right now. They're being tested, and we know that the testing is very rigorous, that it takes many months, many phases. First, they have to test to make sure it's safe, and then they do various phases of testing to make sure it works. And then once that has been proven, it takes many months to actually make the vaccine, all those billions of doses that are needed worldwide. So now experts are saying it's going to still be another year or so. And at the same time, they're expecting a probable resurgence back in November. And it'll be interesting to see if we have a vaccine by that time. It's very important that we don't rush this to markets for safety reasons, but they are trying to cut through a lot of the red tape about getting a vaccine to market.
So social distancing can be hard on people. How important is it to focus on mental health at this time?
Well, we know that President Trump has been saying all along that we're very sad about the deaths related to COVID-19, but there is also increased death related to staying at home. And he's talking about things like suicide from loss of job, loss of income. And as you mentioned before, we're talking about things like alcohol and drug abuse. And then also, John, we've seen that domestic abuse is on the rise, that domestic abuse hotlines are spiking. And we're talking about child abuse and spousal abuse. So it's so important to get people back out into their lives and start feeling good about themselves again. And we know that faith is a huge part of this, and it's helping a lot of people. And the good news is we've seen record numbers of people tuning into Christian religious services online. And so we know that God works in this crisis, and we're seeing him work.
That is indeed one positive effect. CBN medical correspondent Lori Johnson, thank you so much for your reporting.
My pleasure.
Stepping up to serve, how one Oklahoma megachurch is bringing hope and help to the community.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. As churches across the country remain closed for regular worship services, one Oklahoma megachurch is offering practical help and hope. Charlene Aaron explains how it comes at a time when it's most needed.
Finding a way to hold church in this time of social distancing can be challenging.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
In keeping with the rules, the Victory Church pastor decided to host drive-in services and preach from the church's rooftop to people in their cars. Pastor Paul Doherty says thousands have been showing up for the services, including many for the first time.
We had about 4,000 people in the parking lot, packed it out, and I couldn't even see all the cars because they were parked all around the building. So I said, look, I need to get on a scissor lift and I want to preach so that every car can see the message of Jesus right now. And so I got on the scissor lift. We went up about 35 feet in the air and the band stayed on the roof playing to the biggest part of the parking lot. And I just started preaching hope.
That hope, says Doherty, is what so many are desperately searching for in today's uncertain climate.
It's crazy because people are tuning in and they're saying, man, I was contemplating suicide. I was ready to throw in the towel. I'm ready to divorce. This crisis has messed with marriages. It's messed with families. It's messed with people's literally hope to still live. And we're just giving hope. And I just said, listen, if you need hope, I want you to honk your horn. And the horns just started going off all over the parking lot.
In partnership with area small businesses, the church is also holding grocery giveaways for families struggling to put food on their tables.
We have small business owners who are giving up their monthly salary and their paychecks to pay for people to have food right now. 53,000 hot meals and groceries to people who are laid off from work, reduced in their hours. And they're saying, if you guys weren't open, we don't know where we would go right now.
While some complained about the outreach, the city's allowing the ministry to go on.
We had a few people telling us, you don't need to do that. People just need to stay in their houses. I asked our mayor, I said, since we're an essential business, can we still do what we do if we follow all the CDC guidelines, honor you, honor our chief of police, honor our governor? And he said, absolutely, Paul, we're behind you. This is what the world needs.
Doherty agrees, saying he hopes to continue spreading good news in a time when there's so much bad.
We're going to be a lighthouse in the dark. And every time I preach, I'm just preaching hope and encouragement. Now's not a time to hit people over the head with the gospel. Now's a time to lift up heads with the gospel.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Bringing worship to a hospital ward. One nurse's amazing song of hope when we come back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Finally tonight, more and more people across the world are turning to faith for comfort during the coronavirus pandemic. One Florida nurse practitioner is doing just that by using her voice to inspire hope to others in her hospital.
Holy, 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 I want to see you.
One day I was rounding on my patients, and the chaplains had set up what I would call like pop-up worship. And he said, we're going to just worship in the hallways for the patients. They started playing, and I knew the song. And it was just this awesome moment to be able to sing and bring hope and ministry into the hallways for the patients.
Tabitha Newborn says she and her co-workers are using each of their gifts to bring hope any way they can, and songs of hope indeed. Well, thanks so much for watching Faith Nation. We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.